Okay, good morning. My name is Chase Nishi, Chairperson of the Authority. I'd like to now call to order the September 6, 2023 Kaka'ako Authority meeting of the Hawaii Community Development Authority, and the time is now 11:21.
Thank you, Chair. In accordance with section 92-3.7 Hawaii Revised Statutes, the Hawaii Community Development Authority is holding today's Kaka'ako board meeting virtually on Zoom. The Zoom link details were included on the meeting agenda. Therefore, members of the public are welcome to join us on Zoom and also at our physical meeting site at the American Brewery Building, 547 Queen Street, second floor boardroom, Honolulu, Hawaii, 96813. The HCDA communications staff is hosting this meeting. Once this meeting begins, everyone will be muted, clear audio. Board members, if you have any comments or questions, please unmute yourselves to speak. This is a public virtual meeting, so to prevent any distractions, if you are not a board member, staff member, or HCDA's Attorney General, please turn off your video during the meeting. If you are providing public testimony, your name will be called accordingly. Please turn your video on, clearly state your name and your affiliation, and proceed with your testimony. When you have finished, please turn off your video. In accordance with section 92-3.7C, Hawaii Revised Statutes, if the authority's ICT connection for the remote meeting is lost, the meeting will be recessed until the connection is restored. If the connection cannot be restored within 30 minutes, the meeting will be terminated and the authority will continue the meeting at another notice date. Thank you. Chair.
ACDA board members, please remain visible and audible during the meeting. Also, please acknowledge you are present by either saying here or present. Let the record reflect the following members are present. Vice Chair Higa, present. Member Apo. Member Apo. Member Miranda Johnson.
Present.
Member Apo. Member Anderson. Member Hirai. Present. Member Wicker. Member Wicker. Member Sakota.
Present.
Member Wicker.
Chair, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
We have quorum, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, for today's meeting, board members will have an opportunity to ask questions or provide comments after an agenda item has been presented. Individuals from the public who have requested to provide verbal public testimony on a specific agenda item are on standby and will be permitted into the meeting respectively. First thing on the agenda, item number 1. Regular meeting minutes of July 5th, 2023. Board members, are there any comments or corrections to these minutes? If there's no comments or questions, the minutes are approved as presented. Tab number 2, consider authorizing the executive director to schedule hearings pursuant to Chapter 91 Hawaii Revised Statutes HRS at Chapter 201M HRS regarding proposed amendments to the Makai Plan and Rules, Chapter 15 to 23. Hawaii Administrative Rules for the Makai area of the Kaka'ako Community Development District to reflect the section 206E-31.5 HRS ban on residential development, incorporate the Kaka'ako Makai conceptual plan, and streamline permitting. Mr. Ryan Tam, Director of Planning and Development, will now present the HCDA staff report. Right?
Good, aloha, Chair Shi again, and board members. The staff report is included in your packet along with Ramsey version of the proposed changes to the rules and a matrix summary of the key changes to the rules. I'll give a short presentation that'll essentially track along the matrix. Again, just as an introduction, the intent of this exercise, one is we wanted to reflect the ban on residential development, get those codified. We wanted to incorporate the, concepts from the Mackay Conceptual Master Plan, again, which the board adopted in 2011 and directed that all planning for state-owned lands, in the district be, in accordance with that plan. And then probably the most important thing that we wanted to do was to kind of align, start aligning the Mackay rules with the Malco rules in terms of permit types, and begin to harmonize the rules. Again, the Mackay rules had not been updated since 2005. Since then, in 2011, 2012 timeframe, we switched to a form-based zoning for Malca as well as Kailaloa. So again, the rules for Mackay are a little out of step. And what we did find, we had some applicants over the last couple of months come in and try to look at different proposals for Mackay. But we did find that the way the rules are structured, they were pretty limited in terms of the land uses that were allowed, and so on. So I think we wanted to try to start to harmonize it, create a more flexible set of rules as we go about this. Take this opportunity. And again, I think in the future, this is kind of the first step towards harmonizing it. In the future, we would like the opportunity to do a more comprehensive revision of the rules and incorporate it with Malca so that it's all cohesive and make it a lot simpler when people are coming in for permits, that they know what to do. So with this, I'll just run through a few slides. Okay. Just a quick, this is actually a view, I was doing the research on this from the 1941 or 43 timeframe. What's neat, as you can see, is the Children's Discovery Center, which is built on the old incinerator. This was a site of the incinerator, which burned the trash from the city. That was actually the edge of the water. Right, so all the area between the incinerator and the current shoreline was all filled in between then and between the 40s and beyond. So again, a very different district. You can see a lot of the old houses and single-family homes that were here on the Malca of Alamona Boulevard, Fort Armstrong. So just kind of to put this kind of all into context. And again, apologies for any typos. Again, this is going to track pretty closely to the matrix that's the first page of the matrix here. Again, the intent was to clarify a lot of the rules, clarify some of the definitions, allow the executive director to resolve conflicts between the energy code and visual light transmission requirements. For example, that's one thing that we found in the Malca that we needed to address. Something called a rules interpretation that was added. Again, that's consistent with the Malca rules. It allows for us to address conflicts, establish a rule of precedence, and then also allows executive director interpretations. Again, generally, we're trying to remove outdated references, bring the process in line with the current laws. And one thing that's being introduced into the Malca rules is to allow for preservation of significant properties that are no longer present. So that's one thing that through all the outreach that in Malca that was desired. So we're also adding that into Mackay now that we can. Also allowing shipping to adjust the timing of the reviews as it pertains to our actions. So if Shifty needs, if Shifty allows the applicant to move forward with, without necessarily completing, or some of their deliverables are still in progress, some of their archaeological reports, if Shifty allows it, then we would allow a permitting to occur. Again, trying to simplify the permits, again, make it consistent with Malca area rules. Right now, there's a provision for project eligibility review. Our current practice is to use what's called a completeness review. And so that we're trying to make that consistent. Again, we allow design advisory boards in Malca and in Kaka'ako, so we're looking at updating the fee schedules. And also allowing minor changes to the permits as it goes on. Again, the permit streamlining, some of the permits that we're adding in, again, full clearances, zoning clearances to allow some of the federal firearms licenses. Allowing a renovation permit allows modifications to structures. And currently, right now in Mackay, you can either get a development permit, which is like the process that we go through with all these major projects. And that's pretty much it. So we're now allowing these smaller types of permits that can be issued with executive director approval and staff approval. And that should make things a lot more streamlined. Again, also the temporary use permit also. In terms of improved planning, gonna update, tweaking the definition of floor area. Again, allowing canopies more than 50%, including overhangs. These are experiences that the agency has found in the Mackay area of Kaka'ako. Again, more explicit consideration of climate change and infrastructure adequacy. So we're just putting in reflecting that language now because we have the opportunity to. As we said, we're removing residential land uses from Mackay. Again, is consistent with the state law. Simplifying the allowable land use types. That's a big change. Currently in Mackay, it's a very detailed list of the uses that are allowed in terms of, you know, it goes down to whether or not like drugstores are permitted, just very, very, very detailed descriptions. And so we're trying to generalize that and make it more flexible, like how we're doing in Kaka'ako and in Malca. Just some housekeeping also eliminated the waterfront industrial zone. Previously, that was all the area Piers 1 and 2. Again, we're not in a jurisdiction of that anymore. Allowing open space to be provided on podium, rooftop, or garden. So it's one thing that we allow in Malca. So we want to make it consistent. We also wanted to eliminate the minimum parking requirements. And that is to be consistent with what we're planning to do in Malca, and then also the city's ordinance 2041. We're not going as far as we are in Malca. In Malca, we're actually also considering parking as floor area. And to do that, we're increasing the floor area in Malca. We're not doing that in Mackay yet. So right now we're just eliminating the parking requirements. And it's still going to be excluded as consideration as floor area. Again, that could be a future step that we move towards. And then also, we're more explicitly adding the flood hazard design district standards. So allowing designing for transitions between building entrances and maybe elevated, you know, where the ground floor needs to be elevated. There are different ways to treat that, you know, with ramps, covered ramps. You can actually even put the entrance at the ground level in the flood zone and make that a floodable space, as long as the design is made appropriate. Again, most of the developers decide not to do that because it increases their insurance premiums. But that's something that we do allow and is used elsewhere. Just a few diagrams just to show the zoning. Currently, we didn't really change any of the zoning boundaries. Currently, it's called mixed use zone. That was in 2005 in order to reflect the residential use. We're just renaming it Mackay Urban Zone, and so it's a more generic term. WC, that's in 2005, that's called waterfront commercial. We're just calling it waterfront community, just to be a little more general and more reflective the aspirations of the Mackay conceptual area master plan to be a lot more kind of civic uses. For the purposes of this update, we did not change any of the floor area allowable floor area ratios or building height limits, except we did take out one area that was previously located in the current waterfront park. I think there were some buildings allowed there, so we just removed that since that's all parkland now. Other than that, the FARs are should be the same. And just to note, just for visual impact, the yellow, and this is just more for the board's codification. The hatched yellow areas are the 3.2 level sea level rise. This area from Kiwala, this is actually a known modeling error. But other than that, just the yellow areas at 3.2. The other areas, the other hatched areas, that's actually a six foot sea level rise, which is kind of another planning consideration which the city is looking at. But for now, the state we're using 3.2. And then just for also for codification, the previous shoreline, the red line is the dashed area. This is the Mackay area. The blue is the current shoreline. If you look at the old historic maps and overlay it, the previous shoreline was pretty much where Almana Boulevard was. And the historical accounts say that it was kind of a sand dune that ran along down towards Waikiki. So that was the shoreline before. And the names Kaka'ako and Kulael, these were the areas just south of that. And there were, again, areas used for salt ponds. And other agricultural areas. And Kiwala was actually further Malka. Yes, so this for information. And then lastly, just other contexts for the board's edification. The areas, kind of major landowners in the area. Orange is kind of Office of Foreign Affairs. Pink, this pink purple is Kamehameha Schools. And then green is the City and County of Honolulu, the Mackay Parks. And then yellow is HCDA, which a lot of it is actually under lease to either University of Hawaii School of Medicine, other parties, Howard Hughes for the Kiwala Basin, or the wastewater pump station. So that concludes kind of this general overview and staff report. Again, subject to your questions.
Members, are there any questions on the staff report? Director, any questions? No. There's no comments or questions on the staff report. Let's move on. Okay. Yeah, public testimony. Do we have any public testimony? Don't see any public testimony either. Is there a motion for the board to authorize the executive director to schedule hearings pursuant to chapter 91 Hawaii Revised Statutes HRS and chapter 201M HRS regarding proposed amendments to the Mackay Plan and Rules chapter 15-23 Hawaii Administrative Rules for the Mackay area of the Kaka'ako Community Development District to reflect section 206E-31.5 HRS ban on residential development, incorporate the Kaka'ako Mackay conceptual plan and streamline the permitting. Do I have a motion?
Member Higa so moves.
Vice Chair Higa moves. Do I get a second?
I'll second Kevin Sakota.
Seconds. Is there any other further discussion on this motion? If not, Ryan, can you please take the roll call?
Okay, Chair Ishii,
Yes.
Vice Chair Higa,
Yes.
Secretary Apo. Not on, okay. Member Miranda Johnson,
Yes.
member Harai. Yes. Member Wicker. Okay, member Anderson is excused. Member Sakota.
Yes.
Yeah, motion passes.
5 votes. No. 0 no votes. And 3 excused? Okay. Thank you. Item number 3, here, consider authorizing the executive director to schedule hearings pursuant to chapter 91. Hawaii Revised Statutes HRS and chapter 20M HRS regarding proposed amendments to the Malka area rules, chapter 15-217. Hawaii Administrative Rules for the Malka area of Kaka'ako Community Development District to conform the Malka area rules to the TOD overlay plan and make other amendments. Brian Tam will now present the HCDA staff report. Right?
Okay, aloha. Chair Shi and members.
And for the record, member Wicker is now on.
We'll give this just a second. Okay. Thank you. Again, member. Chair Shi and members. The draft rules, a Ramsey version is in your packet, as well as again, also a matrix, again, which this presentation will track against that matrix. Again, this has been a very long process. This may go out in the next few minutes because of battery, but again, this has been a kind of a longer process. We've had a extensive community outreach process over the last number of years. Also, thanks. We did do a presentation on these proposed rules. I think we did it last December, and then also last April. I believe. Thanks. Again, the objective of the amendment, again, trying to reflect the needs of the community, reduce government red tape, promote livable, walkable communities, increase reserve housing, and again, utilize incentive zoning to provide development of community benefits. So again, a lot of this should not be, I think the board has heard this, so I'll try to make it complete. Again, the rule clarifications, again, matrix, first page of the matrix, again, we're clarifying various definitions, again, very similar. Again, a lot of it is, we are reflecting in Mackay also. Same thing with the visual light transmission requirements. We're trying to activate building frontage walls along, where there are flood walls that are required. So allowing that, clarifying some of the conditional use permits, allowing non-conforming exteriors to be maintained. So little clarifications like that. Again, same thing in terms of permit simplification. One of the things is we're using the size of the site improvements or new building area to determine whether or not you can use a development or improvement permit. So right now there's a threshold of 20,000 square feet. Automatically, if you're above that, you have to do a development permit. So now we're saying, well, it's actually the amount of new structure that you're adding or renovating. Adding more flexibility to meet complete streets. Eliminating the view quarter setback above certain heights along certain thoroughfares. Eliminating some of the dimensional requirements, for building towers. Updating the fee schedule, and then, simplifying the pedestrian standards into, an easier, simplified table. Again, permits, again, same thing, rules clearances, zoning clearances, renovation, improvement permits, temporary use permits, so same structure that, we just talked about for Mackay. In terms of improved planning, again, as we've mentioned before, we're adding, business hotels. Adjusting the floor area definition, as I mentioned, including parking in this case. Adding incentive zones, I'll talk about that in a minute. Additional landscaping, promoting cultural practices, eliminating minimum parking. Adding a native wine consultant to design advisory boards, something that was desired. We're designating large canopy trees on different streets. So Pocaina is now the main artery through the district, so we wanted to add that in. Slightly increased height limits, 100 feet in Sheridan, so it's consistent with the area around it. And then up to 40 feet at Restaurant Row. I think we still need to work with the FAA on that because it's right at the edge of the aircraft approach zone. And then a tropical building court type. We're talking about incentive zones. So again, this is the way that the agency has been looking at as a way to achieve community benefits. Again, incentive zones allowing larger projects in exchange for public benefits. This was recommended by the authority's Affordable Housing Task Force. And we're increasing the maximum floor area ratios from up to 6.5 to 10, including parking. And this is all voluntary. So these are the areas that are in purple are the ones that will be included. And again, the examples, additional floor area. And this would be one way, for example, that we could incentivize that getting additional reserved affordable housing. So we could give a 2.0 FAR bonus to go from 20 to 30% reserve housing. To go up to 50% reserve housing, we could, along with, we could give us 6.5 FAR, along with other types of benefits such as shelter hardening, adding public parking. So the example in this case would be, essentially adding a second tower to a development. Again, with the provision that that's affordable housing. It's in this example, relative to the base case, the typical tower, 6.64 reserve housing units. We could get up to 421 reserve housing units. Again, if the additional, if that was allowed as an incentive. So that's one way to get there. Again, the proposed incentives, again, reserve housing, 35 to 45%. That's up to the 4 FAR bonus. Micro units, 45%, FAR 4. And there are others, other types of incentives for green industry, agriculture, public open spaces, etc. Rainwater retention, renewable energy, public parking, etc. So these are all the proposed incentives and how that would work. Also providing for other public facilities, other incentives such as dog parks, farmers markets, halals, things like that. So that's kind of a quick overview of the proposed amendment.
So members or executive director, do you have any questions or comments on the staff report?
Remember, you good?
Yeah.
Just want to say thank you for your work on this. I think the incentive zoning is going to really help. I think eliminating parking really helps. So, I think these are the forward-looking things that will ensure that Kaka'ako can develop more housing for people in the affordable housing range while also getting us our workforce housing too. So great work.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll have to say, this actually, our capital director, Director of Capital Improvements, Mark Kokoda, previous director, Carson Schultz, and the staff have been working on this for years. So this is kind of just the last tail end.
Yeah, and Chair, if I can, with both the Mackay matter, planning rule amendments and the Malka rule amendments. Although we're seeking approval to go to, public hearing and review by the Small Business Regulatory Review Board, we still need to send this out to our Deputy Attorney General for review. So just to let you know that.
And we are still also
Revising.
accepting comments and input. So there's still opportunities to improve this.
Thank you.
But it is a step in the right direction.
It
so
is.
It is great. Yeah, we gotta keep on moving this forward.
Yeah.
So, good. Any other comments? Members? Is there any public testimony? Okay, is there a motion for the board to authorize the executive director to schedule hearings pursuant to chapter 91 Hawaii Revised Statutes HRS and chapter 201 M HRS regarding proposed amendments to the Mauka area rules, chapter 15-217 Hawaii Administrative Rules for the Mauka area of the Kaka'ako Community Development District to conform the Mauka area rules to the TOD overlay plan and make other amendments. Do I have a motion?
Member Hika so moves.
Vice Chair Higa moves, and do I get a second?
I'll second Miranda Johnson.
Johnson seconds. Can I get a roll call, please?
Chair Ishii,
Yes.
Vice Chair Higa,
Yes.
Secretary Apo,
Excuse.
Member Miranda Johnson,
Yes.
Member Fry. Yes. Member Wicker.
Yes.
Member Anderson is. Member Sakota.
Yes.
The motion passes with 6 yes votes, no votes, and 2 excused. Thank you. Right, next thing on the agenda, item number 4, monthly report and other status report. Approved permit applications that did not require HRS 206E-5.6 public hearings. Mr. Craig Nakamoto, Executive Director, will now present the monthly report.
Thank you, Chair. The report of the Executive Director is contained in tab 4 of your packet. I want to highlight a couple of things. In terms of capital improvement project, this is Roman 3. The solicitation for the Kolowalu Dog Park project was issued, and then we're waiting to close that procurement. We've also contracted Vintiaco Consulting Group to perform construction management services for both the dog park and the crosswalk. For Kolowalu Park, the construction bid for the permanent crosswalk to replace the temporary ones was awarded to Heron. And we anticipate a start date of September 2023. And then we'll provide you with the board with more details as we get them on the dog park as the procurement closes. I wanted to also highlight the financial metrics for Honoka. One of the metrics is the occupancy rate. So the amount of vacant units is 16 right now, and actually is a little bit higher because of other vacant units that occurred after this report. It's not acceptable to have that many vacant units. I think what a contributing factor is the resident manager and the assistant who were helping on the project left at the end of July. Locations is trying to find a replacement. I think, whoever's, the person who was there helping to, take the place of the resident manager on a day-to-day basis is really more focused on, day-to-day building management, making sure repairs are done. So it's not a good metric, but I think being worked on. The age receivables is a little bit on the high side. That's, primarily due to some major damage that occurred to a couple of units. This is significant damage. And we have to review that later, to determine whether these amounts, attributable to the units are still, collectible, or whether they need to be written off. Open to questions on the executive director report.
Are there any questions on the executive director report, members? Not. Is there any public testimony? No. Okay, well, thank you for those who joined us on Zoom or in person. This concludes our business for today, and the meeting is adjourned, and the time is now 11:57. So why don't we go directly into the at-large
Yes.
regular meeting?
Oh, well, sorry.
Okay, we've got 3 minutes, yeah?
Take a break for 2 minutes. Put it on mute.